Well, good morning, everyone, and glad you are still with us here. And we're going to take a little bit of another approach on security. And this one will be more on the development side. Because we believe, I work for Snyk, I'm a developer advocate for Snyk. What we believe is that security should be integrated in the development lifecycle from the beginning. Not at the end when everybody had their features done and then like, no, you cannot go to production because that gives friction. Nowadays, development is not only your code anymore. We heard already something about third-party libraries. What you think libraries, frameworks, that kind of stuff. Then you have the environment like containers. We use base images and all sorts of stuff to build things up. And then we have our infrastructure as code, which again is code and part of the development team. Today, I will talk with Jaap about how they did it and how a developer-first approach worked for them. So, Jaap, welcome.
Thanks.
Let's take a chair and just sit down.
Sure, let's do that.
I'm going to start off with asking a few questions to Jaap and having the conversation. If there are any questions in between, please raise your hand so we can follow this up. It's not static at all. We didn't prepare a lot, as in, I don't believe so. So if you have any questions and you want to chime in on something, please raise your hand and we can do that. Appreciate it. Thank you. So, Jaap, tell me first something about yourself. You're head of engineering at Ohpen.
Yes.
What is Ohpen? What are you doing?
Yes. Well, thanks for the introduction. So my name is Jaap, indeed head of engineering at Ohpen. And I will keep it really short on what Ohpen does. But I will just set the scene so you understand a bit on what my background is. So Ohpen is a Dutch fintech. We offer a core banking engine, core banking platform. We offer that to banks, pension institutes, those kind of organizations. And I think we are like mid-sized or so. We have approximately 200 engineers across 4 different locations in Europe. And our platform offers the ability for banks to do the administration for their savings accounts, their investment accounts, loans, mortgages. And those services are primarily consumed through the API that we offer. Right, so that is a bit of the platform that we have as a company and what we offer and the types of clients we have.
So you work with a large development team or a set of development teams.
Yes, multiple teams. Yes.
If you look at security from a developer perspective, so looking into dev-friendly tooling, what do you think is the benefit in your case?
Well, I mean, for us, we try to be a DevOps company. We try to have as much trust as we can in the engineering teams we have. We try to make them as autonomous as possible. And in order to do such a thing, with all the tools, with all the practices we have, all the processes we have to eliminate bottlenecks, right? We have to make sure that those teams can go as fast as possible, they can take that ownership, and we don't make a process where in the security example, for example, things have to go through a central security, I don't know, person or part of the organization, right? And that person will then say yes or no. No, this we need in some way to offer as a service to all our teams, right? And that's true for security, but that's true for many things, right? For all the processes we have.
If I look back at, well, when I was full-time engineering, say a couple of years ago, I felt that security was, for me as an engineer, a bottleneck, as in they hold me back. They say no. They said, like, you cannot go. However, I am the one that needs to manage these KPIs to get this feature out before my competitor has it out.
Yes.
So how is that in your case?
Yeah, so what we are trying to do is indeed not tell teams this is not what these are the things which you cannot release or whatever. Now but we try to make clear, okay, what are the prerequisites for you to be able to release, and make those really clear, and not just as things we write down or as something which is in a manifest or on Confluence or whatever, right? But by being able to show to them, right, this is your code, this is what you have, and these things, right, they are perfect, but these things, they don't follow these rules yet, right? And so they can easily see, always, continuously, right, this is still what I need to fix before I can move forward. And by doing that also, they you create that sense of ownership there, right? They know the rules because we enforce them through different tools we use. And they just know, okay, once I get this below a certain threshold, once I get rid of these kind of vulnerabilities, once I don't use these kind of licenses or whatever, then I don't need to ask anyone for permission, I can go.
So how do you provide these tooling to them, and how do you use them? I mean, you can use them in a pipeline, and at the end it needs to scan and all checks need to be green. Mm-hmm. That's one thing. As an engineer, I would be the one like, how can I circumvent that all checks are green and I can still push?
Yes.
So it's a bit of a two-way question. First of all, how do you provide the tooling so developers want to use it? And how do you create that mindset that developers think of security needs to be integrated from the get-go, just like with scalability and maintainability and these kind of abilities. So how did you manage to do that?
Yes. The answer always is, it depends, right? There's most certainly not a magic bullet or so.
No.
But there are a few things are important. And one thing is to create a culture that they want to own everything that is part of the domain, right? And that's not something you can do overnight. That's something which actually you constantly need to push for. You need to create a safe environment for people to operate in. And I will share a bit more later as well on this. But so culture is one important thing, but also making sure that the things you ask of your teams, right, that they are achievable. So don't ask them, okay, what from tomorrow, everything you do needs to be perfect. And no, that's impossible, right? So we have defined clear maturity steps for all the teams, and the higher the maturity they reach, right, the more things we will also enforce. So, for example, the first thing that we will ask them, okay, make sure that never a new vulnerability is introduced, right? Something like that. Mm-hmm. Afterwards, if they're able to do that well, okay, now make sure that in your pipeline this can be enforced, right? We will never do that as a first step because it will just, I don't know, it will feel like that we're constantly banging on their head, no, you're doing it wrong. No, so maturity steps, that's one thing there, for example.
So you say not introducing a new vulnerability, but, well, I don't know why you all were in December. I was planning for my holiday, and then on that Friday evening, something blew up my Twitter feed and my email feed, as I'm a Java developer by heart, Log4j. Yes. So that was something that was actually already in since 2013. And then it comes to your scanning tooling, it pops up to you. I'm not introducing a new vulnerability, it is already there. Exactly. How do you handle that?
Yeah, so this is a very relevant question for us. So like 50% of our engineers are Java engineers, right? So a lot of our stack is also written in Java. So we had exactly this experience, oh wow, now what, right?
Yep.
And so a few things, right? So the first thing is that with such a thing that this was, for us this was not business as usual, right? There was a lot of attention here. So this also means that our clients, for example, also want to know where is this used, what is the risk that we have based on the services you create. So there we saw the first thing was to have insight on, okay, where exactly do we use this, right? So using the tools that we have, we could really easily see, okay, the vulnerability is in these parts, right? Yeah. And in this example, we besides just proactively sharing with all clients, okay, this is where we use it, and this is what the risk is for you guys, we could set up, in this case, a special team to address those things, right? And that's actually not business as usual, I have to say. Because normally, I would put all that responsibility just within the team to make sure that everything is always correct. But with this big one, we had a special team going in, having that oversight, making a small project actually a fix.
Yeah, because I mean, like from a developer perspective, your third-party libraries is your supply chain.
Yes.
But you, as a SaaS offering, you're in the supply chain of so many other
companies. We are part of a bigger
companies.
Supply chain. Yes, very much. Yes.
So when this pops up, because it's probably in one of your scans, it popped up as this is vulnerable. Yes. What are the things? How are you mitigating this? Just as a security engineer, I would say, just change the library, release it, and you're done. But that's from my perspective. So tell me a little bit more. What are some actions that you took?
Yeah. Well, the reality is not that far, right? And
Yeah.
it depends, because in a lot of these cases, once a vulnerability is in, the answer is actually quite simple, right? I mean, update your library, change the dependency, and you're good to go, right? But there's one big risk there as well, and it's not just that we shouldn't use vulnerable third-party libraries, but also that our service should keep on working as well, right? So that is always a risk when changing your dependencies, that this needs to work. So the first step for us was, like I said, assessing where are we using it, and then for every team that was impacted, let's say, ask them, okay, right, these are the ways that you can easily update, these are the version you should update to. Do that, test it, right, and give them clear targets and timelines on when to update, how to update, and report back. That's what we did in this situation, which is actually, right, a little bit against what I said of, okay, we have that culture of giving trust to the teams, building that trust. But this was a different use case, right?
So you would definitely say trust within certain guardrails.
Yes, very much. Yes, very much. Yes, and that's, I think, also the important thing about trust. And when I said, okay, in order to be able to build trust, you need to create a safe environment for teams as well, right? And creating a safe environment, one of the ways of doing that is by making sure these guide rails are there, so that the rules are very, very, very clear. And one of these rules can be, okay, right? It's up to you to make sure that you fix all vulnerabilities up to a certain, right, score. And above, there may be exceptions that we will step in and give you really clear deadlines, which are really short, right, to fix. Those are part of the rules of play for those teams, yes.
That makes sense. Are there, in the meantime, are there already any questions?
I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
I don't know how you progressed from starting small and then growing really fast. I don't know how that happened. Maybe
As a company?
As a company,
or?
yes. Sorry, as a
Okay,
company.
yes.
And how that has affected the culture that you're talking about, because it's so important.
Yes. Okay. Well, interesting question. So the smaller you are, right? Because of course, Ohpen also started as a small startup, and then things like, okay, we want to work as a DevOps organization. We have teams that are as autonomous as possible. It's not applicable at all, right? You just have a group of engineers that build stuff, and that's it. And then actually creating and focusing on culture. On one hand, it's not something you explicitly do. It's not that relevant. It's just a group of people. They make up the culture. That's what it is. And but the more you grow, and Ohpen was founded like 11 years ago, and so we were growing and growing and growing, and then all of a sudden you see there is no longer one group of people to influence that culture. And then all of a sudden it becomes important to try to push for that. And especially now, we after a merger, we now have 4 different locations where people are. So you different ways of working, right? And different levels of trust, maybe even among teams. Well, then it's making, let's say, that focus on culture a first-class citizen, right? Making it really explicit that this is important. And for that, the buy-in from engineering management is really important. You need to make sure that everyone from leadership understands that, be able to have that trust in teams, be able to make sure they are enabled to take this ownership, that is the way forward for the company. And doing that is a first step then in making also sure that you can grow this culture.
Great, thanks.
Yeah.
So having a bunch of tooling in place,
Yes.
I can give you a bunch of tooling,
Yes.
but that doesn't make it dev first, nor if I give it to anybody here, they will like, yeah, that's fine, but how should I implement it? So if
Yes.
somebody wants to use dev first tooling, preferably of course my tooling, but hey, how would you say that, how would you start?
Yes. So this is all in making sure that everyone understands the value, right? And whenever I introduce a new tool for engineers, the first response I always get is, another tool, right?
Yeah.
Another thing we need to look at and these kind of things. And so it's important that it's not an additional tool on top. It's part of their way of working. It's part of how we in Ohpen do secure software development, for example. And even then, right, making sure that people use this tool is you constantly need to make them enthusiastic, constantly show them this value, right? And that's when I talked about those maturity levels, we use those and we pick a team and then we think, okay, this is a bit of a champion team. We try to push them a bit to a certain level and then we also try to reward people for reaching those levels, right? And for a few things we do is if you with your team are able to reach, I don't know, at level 3 or so, we send you to conferences, these kind of things, right? Just to make it that they also want to do these kind of things.
So actually making it a first-class citizen for them in their mindset.
Very much, yes.
So, okay, I am a developer. I think security is important, which most developers are still arguing about because, hey, I'm a builder and we've got the security team to take care of that.
Yeah.
So I come into your place. I'm your new Java developer.
Yes.
What would you say to me? Like, okay, what should I install? How should I work with it? I have no clue, never worked with security tooling before. I'm a builder.
Yes.
Help me out.
Yeah, exactly, right. So there again, it's about not telling you in that case, right? As a new joiner in the Java team, right? Not telling you, okay, go to this URL every week and check stuff, right? That will not work. So the trick is in making sure that you can introduce security as soon as possible, let's say, for you when you are coding, right? So things like making you aware that if you use certain libraries already in your IDE, right? Already when writing your code, already when for the first time running this, that you will get insights immediately on, okay, well, you use now 3, 4, 5 different third-party dependencies, probably many more, but still. And those already have a risk, right? But don't worry. If you want to fix that, it's as easy as, for example, right, talking to another team, using these best practices we have. Some things you can even automatically fix, right? Making that as easy as possible, and making sure that this is slowly pushed to you as an engineer. But normally I don't focus on engineers individually, but more address the team.
Yeah, sure.
But still, and making sure you constantly see that and you constantly become aware of that, and that. That's it. Yeah. So,
how, in particular, the Snyk tooling you're using,
yes.
How does that benefit you? I mean, there are a ton of tools.
Yes.
So, I mean, I can say why it's good, but I mean, I'm biased.
Yes.
So I want to know, like, how you benefit from certain things that make your developer force want to do this.
Yeah. What works is, and that's an important thing with telling a team, okay, you're responsible for X, Y, Z, right? Is to be able to also then show them, okay, this is just the current situation for your domain, right? For your team. So don't show them we as a company are now here. Our entire platform now has I don't know how many risky things there. No, your team, right? The group of 8 or so that every day work together. This is a picture of what your part looks like, right? That's something which is really important, and I'm able to do that, right? And also, what's part of why it works well is that then I can enforce those rules. And a good example is up until now, I always had a bit of problems in, for example, involving legal in a correct way, right? It was always, okay, we have created something, and then we wanted to go to production, and all of a sudden there was something, right? And then that was always too late, and always the day before go live, and these kind of things, right? And now what we now have is an approved list of, for example, licenses that can be used, right? And I see now that all the teams, because this is so clear, they see, great. I mean, for me, everything is green. Or, oh, there are 2 things that are orange. I used licenses, let's say, that depending on the use case may not be correct. And it clearly states then, okay, if this is the use case, you're fine. If this is the use case, then you need to take certain actions. And because that's so easy, people want to, let's say, achieve a high score, right? They want to be that team that has everything perfect there. And especially since we try to, like I said, award them a little bit, promote them. If teams did a great job, also share that with the organization, allow them to take the stage internally then, right, to share those things. And I don't know, they just see this as a small game they want to win or something like that.
So basically, by using tooling and turning it into some sort of gamification,
yes, very much.
For your engineers, they
Yes.
want to incorporate that as that first-class citizen that we talked about.
Exactly, and especially since they now see it's no longer a checklist where they need to, I don't know, jump through 3 or 4 hoops before they can go through production. All of a sudden, it's crystal clear what they need to do, right? And well, that's something they like.
So to sum it up, make it easy
Yes.
for developers to have it
Very
integrated
much.
in their tooling,
Yes.
either IDEs or CLIs or whatever you're using.
Yeah.
Pipeline integration, but also
But not as a first step.
But not as a first step. Yeah,
Scare
absolutely.
everyone.
Yeah, you scare everybody with,
Yes.
with all red flags and
Yes.
not continuing. And secondly, making it some sort of fun and rewarding
Very much,
to
yes.
make it part of their day-to-day job.
Yes, and a fourth thing, which I did not share, is also not see such a thing as a project that I am introducing a tool, right? The moment you start doing that, you have the illusion that this will be finished, right? And now all of a sudden, yes, we're now done. Now everyone will know. Now it's a constant thing that you have to make sure that you are able to support engineering teams, right? So if they have questions, their questions should be answered fast, right? If they think things don't work well, if they think configuration is incorrect, there should be a team that addresses this, that helps them, that works with them, right? And that's why we have also put the responsibility to support teams in doing this well in one of our platform teams. They constantly make sure that they push this mindset, this awareness.
All right, thank you. We have a few minutes left, or well, almost at that time. But are there any questions from the audience? Yes, sir.
There we go.
Hi. Yeah. So big companies uses third party to develop, right? And not only one. Probably big developing companies. I mean, Accenture, so on.
You mean as outsourcing partner? Or?
Yeah, it's outsourcing the developing of our solutions, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Digital solutions as a bank, right? So security should be embedded from the beginning, but is there any, or do you see any conflict of interest letting the same people, right, doing the security of the thing, and do we need a test before or after the developing to ensure that there is no bug?
I get your question.
So DevOps is really nice, but...
Yeah. I understand your question. So I think you're asking, okay, if you would ask a team to build something and then in the end say, yes, this is very secure, right? Yeah, that's weird. They will always give it like, yeah, right? So that's your question. And yeah. So, I agree. And that's also why using tooling that is able to verify this is so important, right? And why it's important to not just believe a team because they say, no, it's everything is tested. We don't use anything vulnerable. I say, yeah, great, then go to production. No, and now, so what you need and what I also now have is a tool that is able to tell me without someone else saying anything about this, okay, right, these are exactly the dependencies they have. These are exactly the vulnerabilities that can be in there. These are exactly the use cases in which those vulnerabilities can be exploited, and these are relevant for you, yes or no, right? Having that as an automated overview, that way, those teams know what the rules are that I use to check them in the end maybe, right? But I actually don't need to check them because the tool can enforce, right? So it's not they are, in the end, checking their own stuff. Yeah, they are, but there's also still a tool that enforces it, right? So that's...
And I think on top of that is not only initially when you go to production, but when you are in production. We just had the story from the gentleman just before
yes,
us.
very much.
Keep monitoring it because well,
Yes.
we just spoke about Log4j. It was in there since 2013, and
Yes.
when it is disclosed, we need to know like right away
Yes.
what we can do and how we can fix it.
Yeah.
All right.
Almost time. Any other questions? Yeah, in the front.
Wait.
Sorry, no problem. Shouldn't you, with development, start with secure coding? And if so, are you doing that?
I didn't hear your question correctly,
Okay,
sorry.
so shouldn't you, with developers, start with teaching them secure coding?
Yes, very much, yes. And I also don't think that any tool can replace awareness of how you code in a secure way, right? No, not at all. The only thing a tool can do is maybe give some examples, help in creating awareness on how to do things correctly, right? Making sure that those boundaries we were talking about, those outer boundaries can be enforced. But in the end, it will only be good if the engineers you have are able to properly write code, yes.
Yeah, precisely.
But
Yes.
and then again, if you look at your own code, the code that you create, that is 10, maybe 20% of the full binary you put into production,
Yes.
and you can be as good as you can on that 10 to 20%. But the other 80% is you just get that on loan. You depend on that, so you don't know what the third parties are doing. So it's both, I guess.
Yes.
No, that's absolutely true. And besides, you never pick the bugs out of your own code in the first place.
True.
True. That is so
Yes,
true.
yes.
Thank you. All right.
Anyone
If
else has a last remark?
then I want to thank you all for being here. Thank you, Jaap, for
Yeah.
joining me here on
Thanks
stage
for having
telling the
me.
story. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Round of applause.